They took away not only Morris and Jacob, but they took away their families' joy. They took away more than just joy from us. They took away two people, that were loved.
Tonight, the family of two Métis hunters murdered in Alberta react to the sentence of their killer.
Nunavut has the fewest in population, and because of our smaller population, we tend to get funding that is not meeting our needs.
A deep dive into Iqaluit's share of the federal budget.
I added popcorn, apples, and the both different squashes that they had, and blueberries.
And For the Birds, a traditional approach to feeding. Good evening, Tansei Anin, everyone. Welcome to APTN National News. I'm Daryl Stranger.
And I'm Priscilla Wolf. I'll be filling in for the next couple of weeks. Our top story tonight, the sentencing in the Métis Hunter's murder came to a conclusion on Friday when Anthony Bilodeau was sentenced to life without parole for 13 years.
APTN's Danielle Parody has an exclusive interview with the family.
On January 6th, Anthony Bilodeau was sentenced to life with no chance of parole for 13 years. In the killings of Jacob Sansom and Maurice Cardinal, after he and his father, Roger Bilodeau, chased them down a public road. Anthony shot the two men and left them for dead. Roger Bilodeau was sentenced for 10 years on 2 counts of manslaughter in August. The day of the sentence, outside the courtroom, supporters sang songs and held signs in support of the victims. The family took a day to process the trial and spoke to APTN over the weekend. The family says while the legal system worked the way it was designed, there would never be a way to restore what was taken from them.
They took away not only Morris and Jacob, but they took away their families' joy. They took away more than just joy from us. They took away two people, that were loved. They were our life. They were our foundation. They were our everything.
For us, it'll never be justice. There'll never be enough. There'll never be anything that can bring those boys back. And the only justice for us would have been that Rogers stayed home that night and none of this would have happened. And that would have been the best thing for any of us. For them, for us, everybody. Everybody should have their husband's home. Everybody should have their father's home. Everybody should have their son's home.
The life sentence was a relief for the family, who had feared an acquittal.
We have a wall up. As an Indigenous person, you go into a situation knowing that you're already at a handicap in any kind of fight or any kind of situation, especially with the justice system. And so when we first started this trial, when this all began, we came in with our guard up, our walls up. We're expecting no justice at all. We were expecting an acquittal or a manslaughter or, self-defense, that kind of thing. So you've already got all of these emotions and feelings because we've lived with racism our entire lives.
It's angering to hear his wife say, "Oh, the best day of my life was our wedding day." So was mine. So was mine. I don't care. My husband didn't take anybody's life. My husband would never have taken somebody's life so callously and carelessly and without care. They just don't care.
The family is grateful for all of the support from friends and family, as well as the Métis Nation of Alberta. They told APTN that the verdict and sentence restored the names of their innocent loved ones. They have pledged to keep up the fight for justice.
I make this promise. They do apply for parole. I'm going to go in there. I'm going to just create some holy rain on them and be like the frickin' Holy Ghost. You'll see. I'm going to come down on them.
Danielle Parody, APTN National News, Edmonton.
Police unions from across Canada continue to call for changes to the criminal justice system. This in the wake of the shooting death of an Ontario provincial police officer last month. But one criminologist says police criticisms and suggestions for improving the system are not evidence-based. APTN's Fraser Needham has more.
Last month, OPP officer Greg Pershala was shot and killed while conducting a roadside check in southern Ontario. Randall McKenzie of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation is one of 2 people charged with first-degree murder in his death. Four police unions say officer safety is at an unprecedented risk.
In the past 4 months, we've had 5 officers killed, which I call unprecedented over my 27 years, having, different incidents where officers have been pretty much ambushed and murdered. That doesn't happen. Yes, have we had 5 officers killed at one time? That's happened, but not, a series of events and incidents that have led to this.
However, University of Ottawa criminologist Justin Pichet says data shows policing deaths compared to population numbers have been on the decline since the 1960s. And he says the way police have chosen to wade into the issue has been disturbing.
Who are using the opportunity as police officers, who are supposed to be politically neutral and stick to enforcing the law, not making them, to hear them call for more imprisonment, which vast reams of criminological research has shown to be the most costly and least effective way of enhancing safety in our communities, I think is deeply troubling.
Mackenzie was out on bail while facing charges of assault and weapons-related offenses, so police are saying Canada's bail system is in need of tightening.
We need to look at bail conditions, how we treat bail violations on the go forward. I think we need to really take a look. Some people are saying it's broken. I'm just saying it's not working. It's not working for what we needed to do. Because if police officers aren't safe, that leaves the community at risk as well.
But again, Pichet says the facts don't bear this out.
In Ontario right now, we know thanks to a coroner's inquest into deaths at the Lindsay Super Jail this past summer, that, the people who are awaiting trial behind bars are over 75% of the people who are there, with 25% of people serving sentences of 2 years minus a day. That doesn't strike me as evidence of a bail system that's lenient.
The police unions say they plan to do a thorough review of Canada's justice system in the coming months in hopes of making suggestions that will make both officers and the public safer. Fraser Needham, APTN National News, Ottawa.
Today in Digby Provincial Court, charges against 3 Mi'kmaq fishermen were dismissed. It's a win for the Mi'kmaq treaty fishery. Angel Moore explains.
Mike McDonald, the defense lawyer in the case, was happy with the dismissal, saying that the fact that the federal government has not made any changes to the Fisheries Act to include a 1999 Supreme Court decision on moderate livelihood meant that provincial judge Tim Landry had no choice but to dismiss the charges.
So basically, he dismissed the case because my clients did not break any laws. There's no laws for them to break. There's no laws that deal specifically with livelihood fishing. So you cannot be charged for something that if there's no law there in place in the first place. So
the case has been ongoing for 4 years. Logan Pierre Howe, James Wallace Nevin, and Leon Knockwood of the Sabaganagati First Nation were harvesting lobster under their band's moderate livelihood fishery when they were charged for violating the Fisheries Act. Judge Landry said in court that the Crown did not prove that fishing for ceremonial purposes is the only authorized use of the fishery. McDonald says it is still a win for the Mi'kmaq.
You cannot charge someone for livelihood fishing because there's nothing there. There's no guidance for DFO, and that falls on Parliament. So everything that they did was outside the law. Everything that DFO did was outside the law. It was an infringement of our First Nations rights, our rights to a moderate livelihood.
McDonald is bringing action against the Department of Fisheries and the federal government, including negligence, racial profiling, and infringement of treaty rights. Angel Moore, APTN National News, Chibuktuk, known as Halifax.
Well, we want to hear what you think about the dismissal of the charges and any other thoughts you may have on this story or others. Here's how to continue the conversation. You can send your emails to news@aptn.ca, or you can leave a comment on aptnnews.ca. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories.
Now to Saskatchewan, where last year the official number of those who died from drug overdoses has surpassed 400. That's more than one person per day, every day. And the trend has now continued for 2 years in a row. CTV reporter Brady Lang has more on efforts to address the problem and stop the constant loss of life.
2022 was another record-breaking year of overdose deaths in Saskatchewan. It's devastating news to those in the harm reduction industry.
And it's really difficult because it's not shocking. There's no one surprised that we had more deaths this year and that we continue to see more deaths because nothing different has been done.
According to the Saskatchewan Coroner's Service, 421 people died from overdose. That's up from 410 in 2021. One drug, the most common among accidental deaths.
At this point, everything we're testing is coming back positive for fentanyl.
Over a 5-year span, overdose deaths have doubled in Saskatchewan. In 2022, Regina had the most deaths with 85 confirmed. Saskatoon had 45. About 1/3 of the total confirmed deaths occurred in smaller centres, including Swift Current. There, RCMP say 2 people died in a 3-night span just before the new year, both from fentanyl.
These may be your neighbors, these may be your coworkers, your loved ones. It definitely is taxing on our officers.
The province calls the numbers concerning. It says $470 million will go to addictions and mental health services next budget cycle. Meanwhile, the chief coroner says there are silver linings.
I think the positive thing out of the statistics is that the amount of increase is decreasing quite substantially. So rather than seeing 100 or 150 cases increase every year, we're only up about 15 cases over last year.
That's not enough for Damong.
You know, I think any increase is concerning, whether it's 1 person or 5 people or 20 people. If those numbers aren't going down, it means that we are failing our community.
Prairie Harm and Regina's Friendship Centre say it will be applying for funding this upcoming budget cycle. Additionally, Damong says it is working towards a detailed report for public health on the impacts the unfunded safe consumption site has made on the community in Saskatoon, more specifically in Pleasant Hill. Brady Lang, CTV News, Yorkton.
All right, we need to take a break and step aside.
Still to come, we'll head out to Nunavut and find out how the consensus system works in Nunavut politics. Welcome back to APTN National News. Nunavut's legislature works on the consensus system. That means no political parties in the Territorial Assembly. Federally, Nunavummiut elect party members.
Our Ken Driscoll checked in with Nunavut for MP Lori Idlout and found out how that consensus model is being used by her and Nunavut Senator. This from Iqaluit.
Federally, Nunavut has 2 representatives, Senator Dennis Patterson and NDP MP Lori Idlout. Up until recently, Patterson was a Conservative senator. He left the Conservative caucus during the convoy protests in Ottawa, disappointed at Conservative support for the protesters. So now that he's independent, he reached out to Idlout. Together, they made recommendations for the federal Liberals that they both agree with. Every Liberal cabinet minister has received a mandate letter, spelling out their priorities. Idlout and Patterson took those letters and tried to find the parts that could apply to Nunavut. Idlout explains.
We basically represent different parties. Generally, I guess, I was okay with just making the focus on how to help keep the Liberals accountable to the promises that they made and the mandate letters that were issued to the ministers.
One of the big asks from the two, funding for a proposed hydro connection that would see Nunavut's central Kivalliq region tapped into the southern power grid.
It seems to make sense that because of the infrastructure that's needed to help get the Kivalliq communities off of diesel to get them on this hydro link that's the type of investments that were needed.
One constant irritant for Nunavut's leaders is when the feds dole out health care funding on a per capita basis. Nunavut is Canada's biggest region with the smallest population. Per capita is a non-starter here.
Nunavut has the fewest in population, and because of our smaller population, we tend to get funding that is not meeting our needs. We know that there is a huge reliance on medical travel because the health system is just not adequate. Too many Nunavummiut have to leave their home communities for basic health care services.
Russia's actions in Ukraine has people looking at the northern border again. According to Idlout and Patterson, sovereignty in the Arctic depends on strong communities. Can that military funding be accessed to improve the quality of life in those communities?
Nunavummiut don't have the adequate resources to engage in Arctic security the same way that other Arctic countries might be able to. I had one conversation with Premier PJ Akerok once, and he made such a great point that if Nunavummiut are going to be engaged in the protection of the Arctic, they need proper housing.
The Liberals have priorities. They spelled them out in the mandate letters. Now Nunavummiut have to see if what they want to see happen can fit inside one of the government's priorities. That's what Idlout and Patterson are up to. And we get to see if anyone listens. Kent Driscoll, APTN National News, Iqaluit.
All right, it's time to step aside one final time.
After the break, how a Métis artist from Saskatchewan was able to gift her work to a major Hollywood actor. Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. Kenneth O'Keefe shared this photo of Mill Lake in British Columbia. He says the lake was originally called Liquanquen by local First Nations, and that was at a gathering place of the Stalo people. Thank you so much for sharing, Kenneth, and email your photos to share@aptn.ca, and your submission could be featured as our next photo of the day. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast.
We start on the East Coast, -1 with some snow in St. John's and 0 in Charlottetown. -16 in Happy Valley Goose Bay and -23 in Kuujjuaq. -5 with snow in Quebec City and -5 in Montreal. 0 degrees in Toronto and clear and -10 in North Bay. -12 and clear in Timmins and -3 with some snow in Sioux Lookout. Snow and -13 in Churchill, and snow and -11 in Thompson. More snow and -6 in Barons River, and -6 in Winnipeg. Some snow and -7 in Regina, and a mix of sun and cloud, and -11 in North Battleford. Snowing and -8 in Buffalo Narrows, and -8 and snow in Stony Rapids. As we move west, there's more snow, -11 and snow in Fort Chipewyan, and -4 in Peace River. -7 in Edmonton and +6 in Lethbridge. 10 degrees and cloudy in Vancouver and 2 degrees in Bella Coola. 5 in Sandspit and -11 in a mix of sun and cloud in Deeds Lake. -20 in Beaver Creek and -11 in Whitehorse. -19 in Norman Wells and -14 in Fort Simpson. Snowing and -22 in Inuvik and -25 in Colville Lake. -18 in Baker Lake and -18 in Arviat. -26 in Igloolik and clear and -30 in Pangnirtung. A small group of bird enthusiasts are helping out some of our feathered friends. Annette Francis met the young birders during a workshop at the Kingston Indigenous Languages Nest. Here's that story.
Omijin Manikan Akadela Ashidon Gitchy Gitchy Ganashin Gitchy Gitchy Ganashin. Oh, Nishin! It sounds so beautiful. The birds are going to love that tomorrow.
Learning to feed the winter birds is the focus for today's workshop. It's also an opportunity to incorporate learning the Anishinaabe-Moan language.
So when you're learning that language in the environment, you get to really feel, the language and kind of like see that impact, and you get to observe all the ways that our ancestors kind of, the way that they describe things, which is really nice.
Mandy Wilson is the Connections Coordinator. She provides programming for youth every week. She's hoping her love for birds will inspire others to help feed them.
And we're doing this in a way to kind of give back to the birds that spend their entire year, taking seed from place to place and planting all of these amazing plants for us to benefit from, that we get to look at, that we get to harvest, that we get to smell all the pretty flowers.
There's a good mix of healthy foods to choose from, and according to Wilson, there's something for everyone.
The squash is really, really good for the deer. Birds will love the popcorn, eat the popcorn. Birds also will eat some apples, gives them some extra sugar as well. And then we also try to include things that are full of starch, because birds and animals need a lot of starch throughout the winter, so that's why we've got the pasta here, and then we've got nuts, of course, as a source of protein, kind of like mix things all together.
Ethan Narvey created a garland to hang from the trees.
I added popcorn, apples, and the both different squashes that they had, and blueberries.
Afterwards, they take some of their edible creations out for some taste tests. It's the first time Tristram Pilon has had the opportunity to mix some feed for the birds.
Oh, I liked it, yeah.
What'd you like about it?
I don't know, I just like helping out.
Mission accomplished. Annette Francis, APTN National News, Kingston, Ontario.
A Métis artist from Saskatchewan was given a rare opportunity to gift one of her creations to a major Hollywood actor. Beater and designer Christine Tournier Teenkamp was asked by friends to create a special medallion for Jason Momoa. Those same friends were responding to a casting call for the TV series C in Toronto, which stars Momoa, who has native Hawaiian ancestry. For the design, Tournier Teenkamp incorporated elements of indigenous culture like eagle as well as a Hawaiian flower. She's also the owner of a fashion company, SS River Designs, and included a note about her work with the medallion.
They said he opened the gift with them there and read the note inside about the beadwork, and then offered to take some pictures with them. So it sounds like he was really gracious about it and very kind about receiving the gift.
All right, that's all we have for you tonight on APTN National News. As always, if you missed any of our stories tonight or want more info on any stories, check out our website at aptnnews.ca.
And you can look forward to seeing Priscilla over the next couple of weeks as she fills in as host. I'm Daryl Stranger.
And I'm Priscilla Wolf.
Thank you guys so much for joining us, Miigwech, and have a great night.